sound and strong this morning. A lot of questions on my mind. Yes, you do we care? Do we worry about the way this world is going? About the little things I say. We dream of flying over someone the sky. Do we want to keep surviving? What about music? What about the children? What about nature's quest to stay alive? Stay alive. We must listen.
Yeah.
Stay alive. We must share. For a while, one must say, stay where it's fine. Stay where it's fine.
Share the link if you can.
What about children? What about innocence and poverty? Stay alive.
Hey, Facebook user. This is current music. This is new music from Peter. Why are you saying it's old music? It's about staying alive. We gotta be alive. If not for ourselves, for the next generation. All right, we'll be kicking off in a minute. Let me get my phone. Because today we're going to be looking for some audience participation.
What about children? What about insteps and poverty? Stay alive. We must listen. Stay alive. We must share. For a while, we must say, where is mine?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, here we go. Oh, yes. That was our man, Peter Cole.
Yes.
Great guy. Great guy, Mr. Peter Cole. Great artist, too. And we are excited that he could introduce the show. Today is what? Friday, June 3rd. Y'all see the smile on my face? It's not for nothing.
I guess I don't know why.
For our first time viewers, oh my, you see what Love Hopkins said? Peter Cote taught her music in school. That's wonderful. Nice to know. I didn't know Peter taught music too, but he's great. He's really good. So I'm Isaac Vatukpab, your host. My co-host is Mr. Morba Kesserly. And we are excited to bring this, The Wire, to you, the Week in Review exclusive. And we're starting a little early today because we had a whole different show kind of planned, but then there's an eruption of different activities and events that caused us to say, look, we got to do this early. We got to get maximum audience participation as we can. So join us when you can. We'll put up the numbers very soon for you to join us. I mean, what's your disposition today? How do you feel? What are you thinking?
I'm on fire. Just put it that I'm just on fire today. I don't know what to say and how to go about it. I guess I don't have sufficient words to coin how I feel in a minute. It would take probably a year to express everything running through my head right now. I mean, today is a great day, but again, it's a day of some level of anguish, some level of dissatisfaction and some level of frowning on the decadence, the moral decadence in the Liberian society. Today is so pristinely marked in our political joining as a country and people. So today is a day of history. I mean, we will look back on this day, regardless of where we sit, several years from now, and probably
Although it's freezing.
side with ourselves on. We will remember today in history. And I told you today I'm practically in all my elements as I should be, and I have all the quotations from all around the world right before me. I hope I'll get the chance to go through some of them. I mean, I'm so excited and then sad at the same time. But that's
it's okay. It's okay to be excited. It really is okay to be excited because, as much as sometimes there can be anger with the result of some things, especially when you knew, from the get-go that it was not justified to come up or to be against you. But at the end of the day, you still got to feel some kind of relief or some kind of happiness. And it's good to feel that way. Later on, whatever action that can be taken to ameliorate that negative feeling can be taken. But for now, I think we should be in a mood, a certain kind of mood. So feel free to feel what you feel, express some of those quotes that are coming in, and hopefully we'll get joined by more people who can express themselves, because this is going to be an open show.
Yes.
And when the time comes, those are the contact numbers that they can reach us. We want people from Liberia to call in. We want people in the US to call in. My phone is right by me. We'll pick it up, and the audience will be able to hear you and hear what you have to say. But Morba, so we got two different news. I know we don't want to dwell on one of the news, but it is the news, and we are the wire, and we'll bring it to people. So we got to share with people the Supreme Court decision. What do you make of? Have you read what the justice said?
I mean, I don't have the full detail of the ruling, but I have before me printed practically a summary of the ruling from the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Which sums up the background of the case, the judgment, and then what the Supreme Court adjudged right before me that we can share with the audience. It's very important that we talk about this. in
Yes.
passing. I don't think it, and let our audience happened after today. This is where it really all started from, with the Supreme Court's ruling in the case CPP versus the United Party and the All Liberian Party, and then they came down with a verdict, very important verdict. So I mean, we can share that with our audience, and then
No,
go
I
on
think
to
we should. I think we should. So feel free, whatever sections you want to read to give them the context so they can understand. That's fine.
Okay, so let me first of all start by letting people know that the Unity Party and the All Liberian Party took an appeal to the Supreme Court after the NEC, that's the National Elections Commission, uh, held the view that they will be barred from contesting in the Lofa County senatorial by-election because of Section 8.52 of the uh, framework agreement of the
Yeah.
collaborating political parties. So they took that appeal to the Supreme Court, and then today the Supreme Court ruled. So let me read the judgment, then I'll come to what the Supreme Court adjudged, and then I mean we can share our own views about it. So it says here, when this case was called for hearing, Councilors J. Johnny Momo and Gloria M. Musu Scout appear for the appealants. The appellants are the Party and the All Liberian Party. Councilors Powo C. Hilton and Aloysius Toll appeared for the appellee, that's the CPP, which is a conglomerate party. And having fully reviewed the records, heard the arguments and contentions advanced by the counsels representing the parties, and considered the laws cited and relied upon, it is hereby adjudged that it is the rule, it is the law that the power to declare right status and other legal relations are ascribed to courts of record within their respective jurisdictions and not to an administrative body such as the NEC, which is the National Elections Commission. Therefore, the NEC acted properly when it declined to address the request contained in the appealee's letter of complaint, as well as the appealee's request for advisory opinion. That the court and it and persons throughout the Republic, any laws, treaties, statutes, decrees, customs, and regulations found to be inconsistent with it, to the extent of the inconsistency, be void and of no legal effect and must be so declared by the Supreme Court. That the Supreme Court acknowledges and subscribes to Article 25 of the Constitution.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think I went out for a minute, so let me go over that. It says that the Supreme Court acknowledges and subscribes to Article 20.
The mobile is having some
Apparently, I think my internet should be going in
some
and out.
internet problem, or maybe he's being sabotaged. I don't know.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly now.
Okay. All right. However, where a contract violates the Constitution or any statutory law, such contract has no sanctity to be upheld, protected, or enforced. And that the purported section 8.5 subsection 2 of the framework document of the collaborating political parties, which prevents constituent political parties of the CPP that had duly withdrawn from the CPP from the CICPP from fielding candidates in an election violates Article 17 and 79 of the Constitution. Wherefore, and in view of the foregoing, the ruling of the hearing officer, which was confirmed by the Board of Commissioners of the NEC, is hereby reversed. The purported Section 8.5, subsection 2 of the CPP framework document, being manifestly against the Constitution, statutory laws, and public policy, is hereby declared null and void ab initio. The appellants, ALP and UP, having duly withdrawn from the CPP, are free and at liberty to pursue any political interest in their names, including the fielding of candidates in the ensuing Lofa County senatorial by-election, if they wish to do so. The clerk of this court is ordered to send a mandate to the National Elections Commission informing that body of the decision of this court. It is hereby so ordered. Well, that's basically a summary of the Supreme Court's ruling today into the case CPP versus the Unity Party and the All Liberal Party.
So, you got any personal thoughts about that before we?
I mean, I think what the Supreme Court has done today, it's monumental in its essence, regardless of the fact that I was of the opinion that Unity Party and the All Liberal Party should have been held to the contract they entered into legally and conscientiously without any duress and or pressure.
Nobody.
But again, in the wisdom of the court, Section 8.5, subsection 2 of the framework agreement is illegal and cannot be enforced. And being a law-abiding citizen, I think we all should welcome this. But it's not a victory for the Unity Party or in the All Liberal Party. Because what happened today is practically a victory for the for the ANC and the Liberty Party of Chairman Musa Ability. Because look, we enter into a contract, the two parties were willing to live up to the agreements within that contract. And we stayed true to it, regardless of the challenges and all of the political pullings and the political arguments. We stayed true to that contract, and we were willing to live up to the consequences of what we entered into, right? What the Unity Party of Joseph Boakai and the All Liberal Party of Benin Ayiwe have demonstrated today is that they are not reliable. They do not stay true to contracts they enter into. And it brings to question what they would do if they were elected, if, God forbid, they were ever elected into power again. Let me say this for the record. One of the greatest things that have bedeviled our country is the fact that successive Liberian regimes, since the founding of this country, have always entered into contracts with the people. And they enter those contracts with some level of, how do I describe it?
Non-committal. They're not committed to those contracts.
Simply put as that, right? And they always had something at the background, something at the back of their mind. They always had a different objective from what they pushed to the public. For several months, the ALP and the Unity Party vigorously defended the CPP, and they were pushing our ideologies, they were pushing our candidates, they were fighting the CDC-led government. Because at the time it benefited them, and at the time they wanted the support of the Liberian people, they were fielding candidates in the name of the CPP, and they were benefiting from the CPP. They were firm and they were standing with the CPP. Just at about the time we were approaching a period where we had to test their loyalty and commitment to the CPP, and we had to, prove to the Liberian people that we stayed true to what we pushed publicly, they backed out and they brought the CPP's credibility to public, disrepute. They tried to impugn not only the CPP but individual members of the CPP. And today they feel it is a victory for them. I mean, this is not a victory, more for the AD and the Liberty Party, because we stood firm that we wanted a united opposition to go and face the CDC and beat the CDC. Because look, The CDC is the greatest societal decadence we have faced as a country and people since the founding of Liberia. And we needed to use the CPP as a vehicle to bring this decadence and this pariah to an immediate halt. Unity Party and ALP have joined together to betray the trust and confidence of our people. And today, this has brought shame to them. They can go. And by the way, we were never fighting because we wanted them to stay. What we fought for is to prove to the Liberian people that when we get elected, we will stay true to the cause. We will stay true to whatever we push to our people during election time, regardless of how it becomes challenging and how difficult it becomes. Even when we come to power, we will stay true to whatever we bring to the Liberian people, which we will sum up to say the social contract. That when we tell the Liberian people that we will develop our country, we will bring electricity, we will pave the roads, we will ensure we have pipe-bomb water, we will ensure we improve the health sector. When we get elected, we're not come back and say, oh, we said we're going to do this, but we don't have money or whatsoever. That is what the CDC government has done. That is what Unity Party and the All Liberian Party have proven that they would do if they were to get elected, God forbid, ever in the history of our country again. Let me stop there and hear what the old man has to say.
Well, what the puppet has to say is this portends a lot for future contracts. Even though our constitution is saying a portion of that agreement violates the constitution, violates the sanctity of contracts as stated in Article 25. But when you enter a contract, there are conditions. So what it's saying is, if there are other contracts enter in other sectors, in other areas, in other arenas, that means some people can leave and violate the terms that restrict them from leaving the contracts. I mean, there are so many different kinds of contracts. I just hope the long-term impact on contracts in general will not be negative. But I think you dealt with it enough. I don't think we have to deal with it as exhaustively as if it's the only topic. So it's fine. Sometimes if you have a garden and you want to nurture it properly, sometimes the weeds got to get out before the flowers can bloom. And that's a quote from, somebody I just saw just today. And I will give them credit for it because it's their idea and it's factual. So we let things evolve. We appreciate the time that they were with us in the opposition. For me personally, I've always said it. There should not be the level of vitriol and antipathy between the ANC and the LP, because I don't want to say the Musa Bility section of the LP, because this is the Liberty Party that Musa Bility is chairman of. Though Yombly and Dilla and the rest of them are trying to come back to the party, their purpose, we eventually find out whether it's honorable or not. But there's no need for the level of vitriol between us and the Unity Party. At times, if people want to leave, it's fine. Let them leave. That's what democracy is about. It's about clean competition. Bring your ideas to the table. Bring your offerings to the table. Bring your solutions to the table. And let the people decide. Unfortunately, sometimes our people cannot decipher the nuances or the differences. So it's upon us to push that level of critical thinking, that level of discerning between what this is and what this is not. So a huge responsibility to every Liberian who understands the fundamentals of democracy, the enshrined rights, the international conventions that talk about human rights and everything, to help educate our people, to help them understand what the process is, how it works, how you assess a candidate, how you advocate for issues. All of these are things that need to happen. So we should not focus on disparaging the Unity Party, the ALP. No, let them go on their way and let them grow. But in essence, for me, I think the opposition represents a much better option for Liberia. And I truly believe that Mr. Cummings embodies that opposition mindset, and we have to push him in that direction to be successful. So if others don't feel that way, they can go. But the bottom line is we need people, and we hope it works. So hopefully this is somebody who's calling to get on the show If it's not, we'll terminate the call. Hello? I'm fine. You calling to talk on the show? Okay. Your name and where you calling from?
I'm James calling from Taxi.
Okay.
Let me say this. I listen to your panelists on a platform, and there where we make mistake. The organic law of the country, it oversee every agreement. There's a law in the country that say you have a right to associate and disassociate. The people who sat down and crafted that framework document, they make a very great mistake by inserting that clause to say you cannot disassociate. It was a big mistake on the full political party who crafted that document.
No, but hold on now. You are wrong. The clause never said you cannot disassociate. The clause said you cannot leave in one of those terms and run under your own name. And that happens in business. You can have non-compete clause. You can even somebody who works for you in a certain capacity, when they're leaving, you can say they cannot operate within that time frame of that agreement, as an individual, as an agent, or an individual business. So there's no violation there. But thank you for your call. We got your point. And let me just address this other issue where somebody is saying it is a little personal. I fool the Liberian people to put their agenda. Let me tell you, again, it was because we wanted change. It was not we as agenda. We did not put pen to paper to develop the Congress for Democratic Change agenda. That is the agenda we push. We are happy to be the arrowhead, which was actually the wrong solution, but he was the one the people wanted. You can't change that. I did not make 440,000 people vote for John Weah in the first round. I did not make 700,000 people vote for him in the second round. You have to understand that. That's why the work is on all of us to educate our fellow Liberians about what direction. So we understood the point the individual made about contracts. Yes, it's in the Constitution, but there are appendices and attachments and appendages to contracts that when you make them, there is certain obligation that you have to hold. And unfortunately, the Supreme Court has basically said, maybe in the political realm, you're not obligated to those kind of contractual agreements. And as respectful citizens who believe that the highest court verdict is something that we have to go by, we subscribe to that. But what's the other news that's happening today, Marva? What's
just before we go to that, let me quote John Stuart Mill here, and he says, in the Principles of Political Economy, he says, a man who has nothing which he is willing to fight for, nothing which he cares more about than he does about his personal safety, is a miserable creature who has no chance of being free unless made and kept so by the exertions of better men than himself. As long as justice and injustice have not terminated their ever renewing fight by sentencing the affairs of mankind, human beings must be willing, when need is, to do battle for the one against the other. This is to simply say we have two things to fight for. We either fight for justice or we fight for injustice. And before we go to the next thing, I see a fellow who is a supporter of GNB, apparently a supporter of GNB, hailing GNB and saying, they will go on to Lofa County and GNB strong or whatsoever. Look, no one here is, dismissing the strength of Mr. Boakai or any other person in the opposition community. There's one thing you should note. In these political fights, there is absolutely... You have a call? I can wait to take that call if we have a call. Okay. In these political fights, there is absolutely no one in the opposition who can single-handedly without the help of other influential opposition leaders, take on Mr. Weah and beat him easily. It's not going to be an easy thing. And there's one metric you should consider. No other opposition leader in Liberia today has had a one-on-one opportunity to face Mr. Weah as Baka has. Baka is the only opposition leader who has faced George Weah one-on-one, and George Weah beat him miserably. What makes you think that all of a sudden Wakan can overturn that huge gap of 14 counties to one loss to Mr. Weah in one election single-handedly, when at this stage he does not have the power he commanded in 2017? He does not have the political influence and affluence he had in 2017. How do you think he can beat Mr. Weah when all of the advantages he had in 2017 are now in Mr. Weah's possession? So this is Wakai in Weah's position somewhat, because he's now in the opposition. He has no money. And unfortunately, I mean, I'm not trying to be cynical here or being evil towards him. He's not fit medical-wise. He doesn't have the age and the vigor and the exuberance and the tenacity and the fortitude you need to go against Mr. Weah and beat him. He does not have those things. He has a lot of disadvantages this time around compared to 2017. What makes you think he beat Weah one-on-one? Look, it is time you jump off that high horse and try to face reality. We need to reconcile the opposition. It is time that you, United Party people, go back to Mr. Cummings and literally, go before him.
Leave that part.
I'm just saying, you should. What I'm trying to say here, you should be trying to call for reconciliation instead of trying to raise one person. I mean, it's bad. It will not be good for you, right?
So
let's.
We have a caller. Caller, please introduce yourself, where you're calling from, and make your point.
Yeah, my name is Charles Kerry. I'm calling from Staten Island, New York.
S.I., you not hear about me on Staten Island?
Staten Island?
Yeah, you not hear about the name Ava took on Staten Island before?
Yeah, but man, we see you every day.
All right, go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
I see you every day.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so just we all voted because we felt we want to change, you know?
Right.
And generational change, it starts with George Weah, but it doesn't end with him. You know? The one thing I don't supposed to realize that this is a new change we're talking about. You know, we are done with the old time. You know, no government now can operate in Liberia without system bonds. The system bonds are the technocrats. The system bonds are almost everything of Liberia now. And so if we come out and say that we want to go back, I don't know what we're thinking about. You see? So I really support the people that are saying that you support the job. Yes, we all want to change. You know, we want to change. And we should be able to come out with this change to be a change that we should be able to lay the foundation where we can move forward and not to go back again. This is my own contribution I want to make. Thank you.
Thank you. So the point, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, you can go ahead. I mean,
the point he made is very valid. Look, nothing is constant. Change is a continuous process. Improvement is continuous. So yes, we want to change. Unfortunately, the change bearer is not taking our responsibility to effect the change that we want. He has destroyed the country to a large extent. And if people cannot see that, for me, I'm not begging anybody to vote for Mr. Cummings. I will put the case before you why I think you should vote for him. But if you feel your current situation is fine, or you want to go to the back to where Boyka is coming from, that's fine with you. But I envision of Liberia in the future over the next 2 years, where Mr. Cummings is president and he's making a difference, especially for the young people and the women. Those are the real marginalized. Yes, the men may not have jobs and stuff, but in the process of developing opportunities and everything for women and youth, the men will definitely be in that flow. So for the fact, John Smith, definitely we are fools, because I for one believe we are when he said he will put professional people around him to help make a difference. So yes, and sometimes people can fool you probably because you believe so much in the vision in terms of what the CDC presented. Anybody can go and read the CDC constitution and the agenda, for prosperity that was developed in 2011, and see where that comes from. That's the basis for that pro agenda for prosperity and development. That's where it comes from. So, folks, if we don't embrace change, we're not embracing anything. Because I mean, we are settling, and that's what. Just today, I had a conversation with some young people about them seeing no way how they can see the future. So that's why a lot of people are complacent or just don't care. And we have to make that effort to light the fire on them people, to let young people know there is a future here, there is an opportunity. You can start to inspire, utilizing education, utilizing the little resources that are available or opportunities that are available, but don't be complacent. Don't stop pushing, because there are opportunities. There's a bright future for Liberia. Look, I can share with you a picture that I just got from an individual, okay, in Liberia, who just doing, I want to say, artisanal mining, right? And this individual believes the wealth that in the ground in Liberia is no joke, really, no joke. So if one lay person in one area can have something like this, I don't know if y'all can see it, but these are diamonds, and at the palm of your hand, diamonds from the ground in Liberia.
Wow.
So, folks, we have an opportunity in our country. Unfortunately, right now, our leaders are like looting our resources with foreigners. We're talking about the Burkinabes there from Burkina Faso, all being all over the country. The Ghanaians are in River Cess. The Sierra Leoneans are in Cape Mount. If we cannot be allowed to exploit our resources for our benefit, what kind of leadership do we have? Not giving Liberians the opportunity. So there's just so many things involved in change, like not just cosmetic talk. It's actual talk to make a difference for the Liberian people. So those who are talking about, this thing and that thing and change is the only constant thing. Even if you just sit down by yourself like this for the rest of your life, you will change. You will get old, you will get gray hair like me, your muscles will atrophy and get weak. So you got to do stuff, you got to energize, you got to do something to keep going. Again, you want to take power to make a change, my brother Justin. You don't want to just take power for nothing. But Molba, you can come in on that one.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know. There is a breaking news, Isaac. I think we have to put the news to the people, and it's very, very, very important. It's one of
my man, you can't say breaking news, then your network messing up. But let me just address, somebody like Justin Chipoyi. You're assuming, that everybody will act corrupt when they get to government. People are inherently corrupt. No question about it. I'm not saying I can do bad thing. But there are some people who care for people and who want to make a difference. And when you put those people aside, deny them that opportunity to make a difference, and you select people, unfortunately, who will not make the difference, who don't know how to make the difference, but who are there to exploit, you get what we're getting in Liberia today. I'm not saying they can change, everybody can change. That's why I say change is constant. They could flip the script today and just focus only on the Liberian people as possible. But the sins of the last 4 years will not go away in the minds of the people. Even people in government today. And it shocked me when I heard it yesterday that some people in government today, if Joe were to win, they will run away from Liberia. Just imagine people in government. So when there were the lay people who are saying it, I think they're joking. One of my pickings said he want war from here to Morocco, from Liberia to Morocco, to go find a better life. Most of the people who having the anti-diaspora sentiment, if you give them the opportunity to come to the diaspora today, to leave Liberia, thousands and thousands will be jumping on that plane or that boat. So let's not fool ourselves that things are fine as they are. Yes, Justin. Cummings really is the real deal. You know, I used to think I was the real deal. But I think Mr. Cummings is really the real deal. The sacrifices Mr. Cummings made and his commitment to this cause to make a difference is phenomenal. I would have never believed it until I came up close and saw it. So, Justin, we can connect separately for us to have a conversation because I see it look like you have an open mind. So, what about you? If you are saying the breaking news, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, the Magisterial Code, the Monrovia Magisterial Code, has issued a notice of withdrawal and the notice of assignment. So for Monday, June 6, 2022, so that essentially means the government has alerted, or the prosecution has alerted the court that she wants to withdraw the case against versus Alexander Benedict Cummings, standard bearer of the Alternative National Congress, Councillor Aloysius Toll, Secretary General of the Alternative National Congress, and Senator Chairman Daniel Flomo Natem, Chairman of the Alternative National Congress. So that's the breaking news. And today, right after the Supreme Court's ruling in the case CPP versus Unity Party and the All Liberian Party, the Solicitor General of Liberia, Seamus Serenius Cephas, announced that the government was dropping all charges against the accused in the case brought against officials of the Alternative National Congress. So that means the government has, by Cephas's conclusion, reached a decision to say they practically have no case against Mr. Cummings because, look, I listened to Cephas' interview. Journalists tried to quiz him about the allegations contained within the charges that brought.
Well, let's see if we can play for the people. Let's see if we can play for the people. I don't think it was that long.
Yes, sure. If you can get it, yes.
Yeah. Hold on. Let's see. Let's share this screen and see if we can play it because I think it's important for people to hear it.
Very important.
I will ask
questions. Hear Cephas speak.
And he could not answer those questions that he was being asked. So you can see the screen, right?
I'm seeing the screen. I still haven't seen Cephas. Okay, play. Let's see.
Council of the International Criminal Court, and the council in this matter, I think there's no need to continue this fire because the Supreme Court has spoken under Article 2 of the 1986 Constitution. The Supreme Court has three powers. It is called the collateral power or the granting power. That power is to review, interpret, when that declaration is made by the court. It has binding effects on our presidency, individual design of those primary. If you look at the most contentious issues in the CPP framework document, original framework document from Lord resign, and the disputed framework document contained the war withdrawal. If you do a holistic analysis of the two current in the same, in terms of context and content, also Article 17 of the 1986 Constitution gives the Liberian citizen the right to associate or refuse to associate. The contentious issue is that the framework document that was filed with the NDC is not the one that was signed on May 19, 2020. So it is two political parties are not parties. I don't see 2023, no political party has been denied the right to provide candidate. No political party has suffered any injury. All they said that the forgery and criminal conspiracy are occurred. So I have determined, as Solicitor General of this Republic, that the extent of injury suffered by the Republic is removed. Because those are inconsequential. And therefore I'm speaking.
Yes. So
therefore inconsequential. As a consequence of that, I'm now trying to discontinue this line and get Mr. Cummings a free hand. But without prejudice to the state. So as we speak, that document is being filed. I have written significantly on the decision taken, and I will distribute that with all of you, all you your back, you will see the rationale behind the decision of the Solicitor General. And the key rationale is that the Supreme Court has spoken, whether directly or indirectly, has binding effect on all other persons residing within the Republic of Nigeria. I can now take your question.
Councillor Sifa, then the question is the issue of a forgery, and the ALP said that the signature page of the document was forged. How will you consider that also?
The contentious issue is whether the word resignation or withdrawal was used. Now, if you have a right of election and you withdraw or you resign, you suffer nothing. By law, you suffer nothing. The only victim in this and the only involvement of the state is that there was a breach of public order. It's not a question of misdemeanor was committed. It was a breach of public order. And anyone who breaches public order will intervene.
Councillor Sifa, we still want to understand the issue of forgery. How do you discuss that?
I said the Supreme Court has spoken.
The Supreme Court spoke only on the issue of the alteration.
The Supreme Court struck Section 8.5 subparagraph 2, which is a contentious issue, and why we see it.
For ALP filed for forgery and criminal conspiracy.
Or destroy Section 8.5 to say it's illegal and unconstitutional.
Councillor Sifa, there is one reason support what you say, you drop what charges and you support it, outright the state, even the state is still popular.
When the need arises. Yeah, but for that there's no need.
If Cummings said no, you would not, you want to
nobody has the right. If I'm standing behind you as a prosecutor, he knows exactly what to say without prejudice to state.
But what just be the why you mean to aggravation?
It means the matter is kept in abeyance, so coming can go about it. I don't have to answer any more questions. It's been done as it's been. It's been done. So for me, it's a criminal. Of course.
It is a united decision, but it's the decision
that I'm the one, the captain of the prosecution team, leading the prosecution.
You are not the
justice minister.
No, part of the problem with Korea is that you don't understand, you don't want to bring smoke with you, not the justice minister. When you are in court, you know how law and practice, when you are in court, you are prosecuting the matter, you are the one, the authority leading the charge. When you are the commander at the war front, the commander-in-chief is sitting down before you are carrying out. So, in effect, in the case, let me tell you, in the case is Wild versus Simpson, the Supreme Court in the 1930s said, if you are performing a conduct as a public official that reflects your responsibility, your conduct is construed as the conduct of the president. But if you take your hand, slap somebody, it can't be the conduct of the president. So, there is a decision of the Ministry of Justice, Republic of Liberia.
Do you think do you think the Supreme Court ruling today is an unqualified of the case?
Mostly to a large extent, I said, when the court, whether directly or indirectly, has binding effect on all individual residents within the borders of the Republic. Thank you. So police rights have been restored now. Automatically restored. But without prejudice.
So there you are. So I think it's clear there. People can see. I saw some of the comments. Sifa has no credibility in this particular instant. He was just trying to find his way out. You know, but the thing is, he's trying to use the law as a threat to Mr. Cummings. In case Mr. Cummings want to make some consequences happen, like Mr. Cummings has promised. You know, they did the same thing, I believe, with Samokai, where they're saying is with, you know, without prejudice. So that means they can bring that case anytime. I believe Mr. Cummings has some of the best lawyers in the country, and HPA will be able to take the legal pursuit that will resolve that. At least we don't have long to go. We know on Monday that it will go. The assignment on the withdrawal has already been published. We are sharing that information with people to go and support. But we know very well that Mr. Sifa has not had a foot to stand on. He was really, really looking for an opportunity to get out of this case. The Supreme Court has afforded him that opportunity, and he's taking it, but he's taking it a step beyond in terms of what he's saying. So hopefully, Liberian people are watching. They can understand that no crime in any way, shape, or form was committed. That this was an opportunity to persecute an innocent man. And now that they have a way to kill this case, for Mr. Cummings to go about his business, yes, he can. But in my mind, some damages have been done to Mr. Cummings. So it's up to him to understand the significance of what has happened to him and what action he wants to take. I'm sure he will get a lot of input and advice from different people. But ultimately, the decision will rest with him to decide what to do. Yes, Ruth, Mr. Cummings has really demonstrated his resilience. He's also demonstrated his leadership ability. There were many times when people were calling for all kinds of different actions to be taken, but he was consistent in letting the course run. There were many times so many people were disappointed with what had happened, but he was always there to give that support. The person who really needed the moral support was the one giving people the support and telling them, let's be consistent, let's move on, things will get better. So you got to respect that kind of leadership, that even in the darkest times when people are despairing and when it's affecting him directly and his family, his hard-earned name that he took over 40 years in corporate America to make happen. Many of us know, who have worked in America, who know the glass ceiling. To break that ceiling as an African, as a foreign person, or even as a Black person, is not the easiest thing. I don't care how brilliant you can be, how great you can be. When they got some white people around you, your opportunities are limited. And it's just proving, day in, day out, it's proving. You know, so we are just excited for this situation today. Mr. Cummings will not be bothered with this case. This case, all his partners across the world, his colleagues, they ask him all the time, what is this about? And he only says our justice system. But this is a reflection, really, on the negative aspects of our justice system, and hope it can wake up some level of interest in just a regular person. Because just imagine if this had not been Mr. Cummings, who could afford lawyers, who could afford to keep this case going, to come to court. He would lose the case, or he could have, other things could have happened to him. And we just hope this justice system can be changed. And I'm sure, given what has happened to Mr. Cummings, if he were given an opportunity to lead, ensuring a fair and equitable justice system will be one of the key things on his agenda as well. Corruption is already a high focus of his, but the justice system and the underlying inequalities in the justice system and the way it can be manipulated definitely has to be something that a conscious president would take on and you know, try to rectify. Go ahead, Moba.
Yes, I mean, I would want to give a little background to this entire case so that our listeners can understand it, you know, to get a much deeper meaning and understanding of what really has happened here. I want you people to know first that Mr. Cummings has always held that he did not do anything wrong. Everything that happened within the CPP was done with the consent and participation of all concerned. That means every decision that was reached about this framework agreement, which, by the way, he was being prosecuted for, everything within there was agreed by all political parties. If you listen to Cephas, very importantly, when the journalist asked him, what about the charges you had against Mr. Cummings, criminal conspiracy and forgery? Cephas said that by virtue of the Supreme Court's ruling that Section 8.5, subsection 2 of the framework agreement is null and void, that means there's no case any longer. So, in essence, what CFOS has said is that all of the months we stay in court, the only intent the government had in collaboration with Benin Ayue and Joseph Boakai was for Section 8.52 of the Framework Agreement to be removed, where they could be allowed to contest. So the whole thing about criminal conspiracy and forgery was absolutely bogus. It had no merit whatsoever. And you heard CFOS just 2 days ago when he described the report from the Omnia and the Alaco report and how he talked about Sherry Blair in very disgusting form, how he even described the report as, people speaking as, based on the catch they were offered. And you saw how he tried to discredit those two international organizations. But just 1 week after the international groups reached a decision that the entire case against Mr. Cummings is baseless and there's in fact no grounds upon which they should be, the government of Liberia has moved to drop the charges against Mr. Cummings and others. Now, I see a lot of you, that are calling for Mr. Cummings to take actions. And by the way, Mr. Cummings has always said, there were going to be consequences. I don't know to what extent those consequences will be. I mean, I don't want to speak for Mr. Cummings. I don't know what is running through his mind right now. But he was just here a few minutes ago, and he is as calm as ever. So, I mean, it's hard to kind of detect Mr. Cummings' mood because he's always calm, regardless of what's coming or what's happening. I think we around him sometimes get excited and emotional about things, but you never, get a sense of what is running through his mind at this stage. But I'm hurt. I'm not Mr. Cummings. But for the mere fact that you kept these people in court, you tried to ruin their reputations for all this time, only to say you have no case. I mean, the Solicitor General could not answer the question about the case, the very merit of the case the government brought about the forgery and criminal conspiracy speaks volume. And I don't see any reason why any Liberian within the sanity of their mind will celebrate what has happened to Mr. Cummings. Not injustice to any Liberian citizen is injustice to all Liberian citizens, including George Weah. You all should know that one day Mr. Weah will be out of power. Take, for example, and when someone brings such a bogus case against Mr. Weah and they ruin his reputation, how will you feel? Some of you, your fathers, your brothers, your sisters, one day will be faced with cases such as what has happened to Mr. Cummings. How do you feel? How will you feel if people come out and they celebrate the fact that others just try to ruin your father's name or your mother's name or even your own name, and there are people who will be celebrating? How will you feel? Look, this is unbelievable. But the fact of the matter is, as we have long held, Mr. Cummings and others did nothing. This was mere political. It was intended to impugn his reputation and the reputations of the other two individuals. And the government of Liberia, by the way, should be shamed. Mr. Weah should bow his head in shame. Unfortunately, they have absolutely no shame because, they do not know the ripple effects of these things and how it does not only, stop here, it affects our image internationally. The global community is watching. Our international partners are seeing how unserious our government is. For you to go to court for 5 months, you must have had a case. You must have had a reason to be in court. And then just because the Supreme Court ruled that a section of the Framework Agreement is null and void, you say, you have no case in the criminal conspiracy and the forgery against Mr. Cummings and others. What does that speak to our government? Look, Mr. Cummings made a very important comment 2 years ago that we have a responsible opposition up against an irresponsible government. What CFOS has proven today, what Mr. Weah has proven today is that the government is irresponsible, the government is careless, the government is lawless, that the government does not fight to protect the rights of its citizens. One of the fundamental objectives of any government, one of the fundamental goals, one of the fundamental essence of having government is that the government should protect the rights of its citizens, regardless of how strongly their disagreements they may have with that citizen. They should fight with everything they have to protect the rights and the freedom of every citizen. Liberians should be shamed today that we went to court 5 months spending government money, wasting our own citizens' time, wasting our people time in a period where people are dying and people are being hurt and there are mysterious deaths all around the place. We should be shamed that our government wasted taxpayers' money to go to court for 5 months only to come today and say they are withdrawing the case. I'm hurt to some extent, but I'm excited again, and then I'm sad. So I don't even know how to say this.
Hey, you express it to the best of your ability, and that's all it takes. You know, people have to really express their feelings. We don't have to insult. We don't have to denigrate or degrade other people. So that message is to Stephen Sewon. You are on the air. I don't think you should be insulting somebody about they didn't go to school and calling them dumb. You know, that's not what we are about. Let's try to keep it civil and respectful. If you say somebody is ignorant or something, or somebody doesn't know, that's fine. But we don't need to be calling each other dumb. So, folks, is there now. Monday comes, the lawyers will go there, and I believe the lawyers from Mr. Cummings will ensure that without prejudice is eliminated from that condition. We cannot have a termination of this case with the case still hanging over Mr. Cummings. Then, in my mind, no, let's continue the case. Let's go to trial. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate you apologizing. That's good. That's how we should engage each other. So it is important for those who follow Mr. Cummings to not use this situation as a means to insult other people. We've got to start focusing on positive advocacy. Mr. Cummings stresses changing our hearts and minds, and that's part of it. Sometimes when people insult you or people do negative things to you, you can't dwell on it. You got to let it go. You got to encourage other people to be the bigger people in some situations and move on. Mr. Cummings talks about building a 21st century Liberia. That means moving us to another level where we have never been before. And for us to do that, we need a significant number of Liberian resources in Liberia, in the diaspora, especially in Liberia, where there is significant unproductive capability sitting down that could be utilized in so many different sectors, especially in my mind, the agriculture sector, the housing sector, and the tourism sector. Those three sectors are areas that are just waiting to happen for Liberia. And he talks about those things. He talks about our healthcare system. He talks about education system. He talks about uplifting the youth and the market women especially. We know the core of any Liberian family is the mother. And if we can elevate our moms and our mothers, especially those enterprising ones, we can make a big difference in our country. Okay, if we can build our agricultural system, that we got decentralized farming with specialties all across the country that have our buttressed by, whether it's energy, whether it's the provision of water, and these systems are available, they can happen. So the vision of Mr. Cummings is strong. People need to take their time sometimes and listen to what he's saying in terms of what he wants to do. The issue about preventive health. Some people, if you really have a good, effective preventive health system, you don't really have people getting that sick, and you have an early warning indicator. So many times I go to different Liberian engagements and ask people in Liberia, have you done a physical? Most don't know what the word physical means. Have you done a medical exam where they check you all over your body? 99% of the time, no. So people don't even know what happened with them. Some of them are very sick. Some of them are walking dead. They just don't know. And when they just drop, they don't want to say that witchcraft or want to say that something else. Most things are explainable by science. So for us to get to that level, we need a leader with that vision. We need somebody who will move the needle in terms of development, who will build network, not only depending. I'm not saying the aid is not good, but aid has never really developed a country. Because for one, especially aid in Africa, our people don't use aid for the right reasons. And when they get aid, the money from their own taxes and everything, they just steal it. But you need that support. You need every dollar to improve your development situation. So unfortunately, the situation is what it is. Mr. Cummings engaged people that some people look at like this person is saying. I will share his comment. Why did Mr. Cummings get involved with the old deceitful politicians, knowing that they are old wines and he is the new wine to change the dynamics of our politics? Lastly, how can we trust him? There are several factors there. The reality in Liberian politics is you can't just come from the outside, basically, and just jump in and expect to be successful. No, you need some of the people who were there to engage with. And also, these people are citizens. They are part of this country. If we can convince them to change their minds, if we can work with them, if we can engage them, how can we engage the larger population? It's not an easy thing, Mr. Mo, that you just neglect everybody else. You have to engage people and you have to partner with some of them. But you got to set the standards, and that's what Mr. Cummings did. He set the standard that he was not going to bend to some of the things that they wanted him to do, to deviate from some of the core principles that he has as an individual that he has built up over the years. So let's understand we have to work together. You know, because I work in the ghetto and I go to Zogos and try to help them. I mean, I got to get high. I got to do drugs. No, I don't have to. Some of my friends do drugs too. Some of my friends drink. Do I have to do that? No, I don't have to. So you can associate with people who do certain things that you do, but your effort, especially when it comes to national development and building this country, is to move them towards that direction.
Yeah, I mean, and as a just to address that concern there about Mr. Cummings getting involved with old and deceitful politicians. Look, when Liberia was founded, we founded a country practically divided from the very beginning, and that has been one of the greatest challenges that have bedeviled our country. The people who came from the American colonization society, those free slaves, I mean, they taught themselves better. They did not want to associate with the other Liberians. And then they ran the government. They did not include everybody. 133 years later, all that structure, that oligarchy came crumbling. And then the new order came to power, which were what, quote unquote, the native people. They too did the same. They decided to exclude the other set of Liberians. And then what happened? We went to another civil crisis. You cannot run an opposition or run a government without being very inclusive. And what Mr. Cummings demonstrated by working with these people you consider old and deceitful politicians is a hallmark of leadership. It is a pristine and very shining example of how Mr. Cummings is a different breed of leader, of how he wants to make Liberia a better place for every one of us. It doesn't matter what John Brown has done or Paul Brown has done in his past. Once he's willing to come to work with you to change Liberia, to achieve objectives of changing the country and making our country a better place and making our people better, you should be willing with open arms to work with whoever, regardless of what they did in time past. And that's what Mr. Cummings demonstrated by exercising faith and expressing faith in these people and opening his arms and saying, look, brothers and sisters, let's work together. Let's come together as a united opposition. Let's hold the government accountable. Let's push for the greater good of Liberia. Let's push for change. Let's push for a government that will be more accountable to our citizenry. Let's push for electricity and pipeline water. Let's push for decency in governance. Let's push for integrity. What I don't want you to do is to hold Mr. Cummings guilty or accountable for these people saying, look, my man, we can't be like you, or we don't want to change this thing. As for us, we're not really serious about changing it. The way we see you, you're too serious about doing this thing, and you really mean what you're saying. In essence, that is what they have demonstrated. So you cannot blame Mr. Cummings. You should be disgusted that other people who decided to say, okay, Mr. Cummings, we agree. Let's join this change train. I've basically backtrack and say, no, you know what? We cannot continue on this drive, because if we continue this, we will empower Liberians. We will educate our people more. We will, give Liberians power that they do not have.
And that is what the all others that want. So they see Mr. Cummings now as a threat because Mr. Cummings has remained true to the very founding objectives of the opposition. That's the biggest fundamental difference between Mr. Cummings and other leaders. He has remained true to everything they signed from the very beginning. He has remained true to the very essence of why we founded the CPP in the first place. But the other leaders believe, and they have demonstrated that staying true to the fact that we should make Liberia better and Liberians better will, in essence, stop them from lining their pockets and getting rich at the detriment of the people. Because look, time immemorial, all the governments that have come to power, they have enriched themselves while the rest of the country suffer. Look at Mr. Weah. Weah is richer than Liberians. He's richer than the country. He lives in luxury and in extravagance while our people go to bed hungry. He lives with security while our people are insecure. He lives in electricity while our people sleep in darkness. He has the best healthcare, deliverables for himself while our people are dying in slums. He has security all over his place. Our people are dying mysteriously. If anything happens, there will be an investigation. People will be held accountable. Our people are dying on a daily basis with no accountability. And this new order that the guys want to institute after Mr. Weah will do exactly what Georgia has been doing. That's why we have had a recycling of governments time and time and again. They see Mr. Cummings as a threat because they thought they could ride on him and say, oh, let's just pretend. But Mr. Cummings is serious. It's not about pretending anymore. It's about standing up and being true to what you say to the people in public and living up to the standards you set.
Take a breath. Take a breath. No, seriously. What Mulva is saying is basically the truth. Mr. Cummings is a man of integrity. Mr. Cummings, when he makes a commitment, he sticks with it. Even for the small things, you find him holding people accountable for time, for commitment to communicate, for engaging people who they are supposed to engage. So you see all those little things that kind of pile up to the big issues, and you know why Mr. Cummings has this commitment to this issue and, has been steadfast in his position to let things play out. He knows he's innocent. There is no proof to show that he forged anybody's signature or that there was any conspiracy between he, the chairman of the ANC, Senator Daniel Flomo Netin, or the Secretary General of the ANC, Mr. Elisha Stowe. So it's just wonderful that portion is behind Mr. Cummings, and he can decide how he wants to move forward. So what else is in the news, Mulva? Except you want to continue with this, but I think there will be some wings under this sail. Tomorrow, the papers will carry, Monday, the papers will carry a lot of this story from different angles. And we can just hope that we communicate to our indigenous people what this victory or what this situation means in terms of this case, being withdrawn from the court, or basically, in my mind, I'm thinking like dismissed, where it's not an issue no more. There are many people out there who need to touch Mr. Cummings, and it's not necessarily in a financial way or he has to do something for them, just to engage him. I really believe Mr. Cummings get in a room with 100 people, he has a near 60% closing ratio for the people to start to share the way he think. He has that ability to communicate with them, to engage them. So getting this opportunity now to get back into the field, to get back into the counties and, spread the word, share the message, engage the people will make a significant difference in the direction of this campaign, especially his engagement with the young people, with the first-time voters, who will be able to basically just be inspired by the message he brings, by his own experience, where he came from. Point 4. Born in the government hospital, lived Point 4, then moved to Fiama. He wasn't born with no silver spoon in his mouth. And now Liberians have to understand. So Victor Saki, I can understand your emotion and your sentiment. But for somebody who nothing has been proven against, somebody who they basically dropped the case against today, For you to come in a public forum and say the person is a criminal, what does that make you? What is your mind telling you to justify your statement? It has no basis. We can't just be putting up spurious emotional statements about other people. You don't even understand the circumstances. So while you got that freedom of speech, as a young person, I advise you, use it reasonably. So nobody should bother Mr. Victor Saki. He made his statement. Let his statement stand by itself. Folk, there are other things happening in the country. We had a whole what do you want to go on today? Was it the budget was supposed to kind of discuss today?
We should have talked about the budget today.
We'll get to the budget another time, but there were a few other news items that we looked at in terms of headlines. One of them I really caught my eye is Yomli Kanga was calling for peace and reconciliation, basically, in the Labour Party. And we must note that Chairman Musa Belete has been consistent that he's open for people to have these discussions on their side, to get people together, to be able to have, an opposition discussion. Where are we as an opposition? Yes, the opposition is not a monolithic group. We're just not one group thinking all the same way. No. But it's a group generally that says it wants change, that says what's happening. You have laid down the litany of things that are happening from a negative perspective in this government, from the corruption, from the lack of good health care, from not caring, from the education system being messier than what it was under, Madam Salif, to the lack of job opportunities and not creating jobs. So many promises were made about job creation. We don't see any manifestation of those things happening. Recently, I heard, ArcelorMittal is creating opportunities for some young people. That's overdue. If they have been checking on those country reports that were proffered by or submitted to the government by ArcelorMittal, they would have seen that those jobs should have already been created and Liberians should have been employed in gainfully, upwardly mobile positions. Unfortunately, there is nobody looking out for the people. I don't understand how people feel they're doing their jobs when they are not making an impact for the citizenry. So all of those things are things that will change under our coming leadership, and people have to be cognizant. It's not just about the noise or the popularity. It's about really who can move our country forward, who can change the lives of the people, and the people themselves have to realize where they are. Back, basically, a lot of people in Liberia are still living like people were living in 1822. How do we change that and move this country forward is what Mr. Cummings is offering the Liberian people. So is there any other headline that...
Yeah, this is, let's talk about this. This is more of a Veteran cry. You can recall on Wednesday, May 25, an employee of the LEC was electrocuted in Monrovia,
right,
and he was taken to the John F. Kennedy Memorial Hospital. The family made a call for the government to take him out of Liberia for advanced medical treatment. And Front Page Africa reported today that he's been abandoned by the administration of the Liberia Electricity Corporation at JFK. So it's at risk, basically. I think, first of all, it was terrible management on the part of the LEC that led to this incident. And then he's there, an employee of the LEC, and he's been abandoned. The family is crying. They may lost their loved one. It is within the powers of the LEC. I think they have some money. They can find the money to treat this young fellow, Mr. Bobby, but he's been abandoned at the hospital. This is quite unfortunate. I hope LEC and the president, they can step up to do something. You can't just abandon a Liberian citizen to die like that. People, they have to, put some value on the lives of our citizens. This really sickening and unfortunate. This young man works for the LEC. His life is at risk. If they have some insurance policy put in place for their employees, insurance will have even taken care of this. But there's no insurance for these guys, and they risk their lives every day to climb on these poles. And fortunately for him, he got electrocuted, unfortunately, but fortunately he did not die. So now he stands a chance. Why can't the LEC come to his aid and just take him out of this country for advanced medical aid? And I can tell you that if that was the
Moba, let me ask you: has there been some press release from the LEC at all? Because they say he was on duty. I have not seen anything from LEC.
They have not said anything. Have not said anything.
What is that? What does they care?
That's just disregard for the life of that employee.
And the Ministry of Labor is not even coming out to say anything. So that means worker rights are not protected. You know, it's really sad. The Liberian people are in serious trouble. I just hope they can recognize the trouble they are in, and we all collectively try to find a solution to these things, because it makes no sense for a major institution like that, where people are in a risky job situation. Electricity is no joke. And people are in risky job situations, and they don't care when something happens, something adverse or negative happens to their employees. So it's incumbent upon those in power to bring LEC to book. They got to look for this. I don't know what the healthcare plan is for employees at LEC. I know back in the day when I worked at Chase, we had a healthcare plan. We would go to the doctor and the company would pay. Unfortunately, today, some of those things are not happening. Mobile, let me hurry up and get my... Oh, it's right here.
I mean, why as it's getting...
No, I'm fine. I thought the plug wasn't here. Go ahead.
I mean, there should be insurance for these people. If we hadn't, if he was caught, I mean, people have taken care of his medical bill. But this basically just talks about the fact our government is failing everywhere. There must be some system put in place.
But you see, everybody says system, right?
There must be something somewhere for these things.
You can lay something out on paper. For somebody to translate from that paper and implement it is not an easy thing. Not too many people have that skill. And it seems that most people in this government don't have that ability to do that. So until they can try to recruit and get professionals who have the ability to implement, this government will be up a creek. You know, they will not meet the needs of the people. It can be as simple as saying, we ensure that all employees of government who get sick will be taken care of. How you implement that is more than just saying it. So we just hope that people recognize that it's not an easy thing to implement or manage projects, you know, and nearly everything I believe is like a project. You can look at everything in terms of a project, and it makes a difference how you approach it, how you lay it out, how you hold people accountable, how you task them. All of those things are factors into effective implementation of programs. And unfortunately for us, we don't have people who have the appreciation of all those little nuances that go into, you know, successful project management. So that's a problem we face. There was another my own county, Riverset. They say terrible learning conditions in Riverset. We highlighted that years ago. I mean, some of the situations our students learn in, and it's not unique to Riverset, don't get me wrong, but I was able to see it visibly in Riverset, where there were no chairs at all in some classrooms. Many of the schools got no windows. They just like open places. If it's raining, the rain will be touching the kids, and most likely they won't even bother to come to school. The distances they have to walk to get to school. It's like we forget about our people. I don't understand, you know, how we do that. How people don't care about people, and you are representing those people's interests. You negotiate contracts on behalf of those people. You collect taxes on behalf of those people. But what you do, the only money they probably get is social, corporate or social development fund or county development fund from the key, you know, businesses or you know, foreign direct investment resident in the county. That's not enough. The government must care for its people. The government has to do certain things to make a difference for the people they are governing. That's the social contract. They give you that responsibility. Go negotiate our contract. Go collect our money for us. go do anything in our best interest, but at least provide security for us, provide education for us, provide some kind of public health care for us. Why can those be staple? Why can social goods be provided for our people? The access to water, access to electricity. Some people pay, some people can't pay. But that's why you got different kind of programs to consider and incorporate different kind of people into the governance system. So, no, Prince Masakwa, I've been ignoring some of the comments you've been making about mobility and his relationship with Mr. Cummings. At no point in time has Mr. Cummings given Bility money for him to ask Bility for money back. So let's be mature on this platform. You know, you can't be saying negative things about people that you don't know of. You presented yourself as somebody who are trying to make a point, but unfortunately, you are delving into areas that are not true. Mr. Bility is very committed to supporting Mr. Cummings. He believes Mr. Cummings is a change. People may denigrate and talk about Mr. Bility, and again, that's what democracy is about. They have a right to, and he may have a right to take action. But Mr. Bility, like he said before, is one of us. He's a Liberian. He's a citizen. He has a right to participate in the political activities. If there was no right, NEC will have the right to ban him from doing what he's doing, to not be part of a political party. But he's a recognized chairman of one of the 4 major political parties in the country. And you got to afford him that respect, you know, Prince. So please stop the negativity or, you know, discussing things that are not true, that some people may read and walk away with and think, you know, since nobody's saying anything what Prince said is true. We need to respect each other. We need to respect those in positions, but we need to hold true to our convictions that when they are wrong, we can tell them they are wrong. So thank you, Prince. Please conform accordingly. So another thing that I said, the school system, the conditions the children go to school in is wrong. I don't think there's somebody who's calling for the show. Let me just see. Hello? Yes? I'm good. Are you calling to make a comment? Okay, hold on. Yes, can you introduce yourself and say where you're calling from?
My name is Jerry Tawe. I'm calling from Maryland.
Welcome, Jerry. What you got for us?
Yeah, just want to ask a quick question. Look, thanks for what you're doing, but I got a concern. When the TOP was formed, a lot of Liberians, those in Liberia and those in the diaspora, were so very excited.
Yep.
As we speak today, is disintegrated. So my question is, do you think without the other collaborating parties, Cummings can win this thing by himself?
Okay, so like Mulba said before, nobody can really win elections by themselves. George Weah did not win elections by himself. George Weah had NPP and LPDP in a coalition. Their coalition probably should be ending this August, I believe. It was a 6-year relationship. It should be ending soon. So those two parties could be going anywhere. So nobody wins the election by themselves. The key is, at the end of the day, 2 parties will go to the second round. But before we get to the second round, there need to be a sense of mutual respect in the opposition, especially among the regular members of these different political parties, that it cannot just be insulting the leadership or making, you know, disparaging, denigrating comments about them that don't have any semblance of truth. Yeah, sometimes propaganda is acceptable. You can bring propaganda to attract people. But when it gets so vicious and personal with so much vitriol and hate and anger, it takes away from the political space. And that's why some of us advocate for, let's stick on the issues. I believe we will debate the issues. The ANC and Mr. Cummings can beat anybody on the issues.
Yeah, so now, you know, with that said, do you see hope that eventually they will come together?
Yes, I do see that.
because we can't afford this opportunity. We can't afford this right now. We need this change.
And that's why we need more people to be active. You know, there's a significant number of Liberians who are not involved in the political process. Probably because they're tired with it, probably because politicians have lied to them, probably because they feel they can get no benefit from it at all. And then there's a whole group of successful Liberians on the ground who can be involved in politics and make a significant impact on different people. Right. But they don't want to deal with that insult, that disrespect. They don't have time for it, and the games and the lies. Many of them don't want to do that. But we have to make them realize that they have to get in, because this is an opportunity for us to actually bring change, to make a difference, to help our people. So this call is out there. Even some people in the diaspora too who may not want to participate. Try to find a way you can reach out to one Liberian. You can engage that person. You can talk to them. You can try to make them understand where we are as a country, how critical it is for us to move forward, how globalization is changing things, how what we do here does not only impact Liberians, but it impact other people in the world. Similarly, actions in other parts of the world affect our people here. The opportunities that are out there for young people, most young Liberians should be like in all kind of different organizations, going to all kind of different conferences and being involved and showing the talents around the world, but they're restricted simply because we don't have, quote unquote, an open government that really supports its citizens, that really help to make a difference in our education system, in the children's pursuit for the best life, what will prepare them. So that's where we are.
Can I one more question I need to ask? Do you think Cummings has done enough to address all these accusations, or not these accusations, but the most important accusation? I remember he had a press conference and he addressed this. But do you think he has done enough to clear this thing about alteration and the rest of it? Because he's been silent too much.
I don't know if you have been listening or not, though.
The more you are silent, the more people eventually believe things.
Mr. Cummings has not been silent. I don't know where you have been. Mr. Cummings even got a private team of, lawyers and investigators. Omnia was the law firm headed by Sherry Blair, and and Alaco, an investigative team, professional investigative team that did the investigation, and made a clear declaration that Mr. Cummings did not do anything. He did not forge anything. But it's up to other people and us who hear these things and to be sharing it. We share that information on community radio stations. We share with the regular radio stations. Mr. Cummings very soon, by the conclusion of this case, he will obviously probably have a press conference and he will address many of these things again. And we'll be able to have to communicate it to other people. But this is a continuous process, because the good things sometimes it don't get to people. The bad things tend to disseminate much quicker. So we got to keep working.
Last question. So where are we?
How many last questions you got, my beginning?
The surrogates, my man. The surrogates are the ones that actually propounding the divide here.
No, but I totally agree with you.
Doing to send the message to people who have given up that look, this coalition will not hold. What are we doing now? Let us not wait for second round. What are we doing now?
No, we can't wait for second round. We are talking, and that's why we are saying the opposition is now a monolithic group. It's now one group. Okay? There are people who have ambition. Congo wants to be president. Cummings wants to be president. Boyka wants, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, only one may probably make it to the second round. Right? If two opposition people make it to the second round, great. But we know that there are at least 20 to 25% of the Liberian people who, regardless of what we are, can go kill 10 people today. They will still say we are going to be president and support him because they love him that way. You can't take that from them. That's how they feel. So it's up to other Liberians now to convince those people who on the fence, those people who don't want to participate in politics, for them to understand that's part of citizenship. That's part of advocacy, being a part of this process. So we got to reach out. We got to consistently reach out. And you sound like somebody who wants to be a part of this thing. So I will call you after this show for us to chat, to see what kind of role you would like to play in this, because the space is open. The space is open for us to make a difference for our people and enlighten their minds. So thank you for calling. I will call you back.
Thank you so much.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
So yeah, I know that sounded like an exchange with just me and one individual, but you listen. So what do you have to say? Molba is freezing there, but yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I kind of didn't hear most of what the conversation you had. It's raining here heavily, so
Oh
I'm
wow.
having some questions on my end, yeah. So I cannot really make an input on what he said. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So no problem. Somebody else has a statement here. As a Tukpa, I have interest in the educational system of the nation. However, we don't currently have a model that can be propagated to all 15 counties. If the young people are not being educated, sir, what does the future look like for Liberia? I went to school in Liberia from elementary to high school, but this was a different time. I envision a model similar to Finland, but this cannot be accomplished unless there is a political will to invest. But also, the private sector must also be, I guess, invited because I can see the end. So, for some reason, sometimes when Facebook comments come in, I don't see who the commenter is. I don't see the name. So I'm sorry to this person that I can't call a name, but your point is well taken. We really don't have a model. So the Musrado, the Monrovia Consolidated, school system, the MCSS, was supposed to be a model that should be replicated across the county and across the country. Unfortunately, that did not happen, and we really, really do not have a model. We got the Ministry of Education; it has a curriculum, but again, there's a limitation on teachers. One of the key things the company is pushing is teachers training, because garbage in is garbage out. GIGO, that's what they call it, especially in IT. So we have to ensure that the people who will prepare our young people themselves are prepared. We've seen different pictures of some of the teachers where they write on the board, how they teach their children and stuff. They are way behind. And we have to bring our teachers up to speed. That is a major part of improving the education system, the teachers, the infrastructure, the curriculum to make it competitive, that we are learning what other young people in other places, like you said, Finland, other places are learning, and we be competitive with them. I have confidence in the ability of Liberians to learn. Smart people, I believe. Unfortunately, most people are not given a chance to develop their intellectual ability. The average years of schooling in Liberia is 2.4 years. That's what most Liberians, that's the length of time to go to school. That is atrocious. It needs to change. So from enforcing truancy to make sure that people who are supposed to be in school are in school, are not out of school, that parents are accountable to their children, that will find a way for kids to be engaged after school. People have so much time to get into trouble. We need activities. We did a baseline study a few years ago for the Ministry of Health. And one of the key things that most of the parents and people in the community were saying, there's no community center, nothing for the children to do when they leave school, no after school program. All of those things are essential. They help you, because I know they help me. I used to go to after school every day and it reinforced. Mr. SP, I believe that was the name. He reinforced whatever I learned. And that helped me. And that is what will help our children. And many young people at the university could be mentoring in the different communities for a little stipend. So until we find a model that can sustain our education system, we'll just be floating. So great point. Thank you. Marva?
Well, yes, I mean, education is.
Oh, hold on. Before you go on, this comment came from Dr. Moisey Ekondayo Dixon. Doc, we really appreciate the comment. If you can drop your number in, or you can go to my Facebook name, Va Isaac Tukpa. It'll be wonderful to engage you further. We need all hands on board, especially our educators, because that's the system that really would change our people's lives. And it's not only formal brick and mortar or the education, it's also technical and vocational education. It's also life skills education. It's a combination, and approaching our people to be able to even think critically, understand the rules as citizens. So there's a lot of teaching that has to be done. And we can never get enough of you doctors of education to help push our system and help change our system. Sorry, Morva, go ahead.
I mean, imagine our education is so bad to an extent where university graduates do not even know what it means to put a computer.
I don't think it can get worse than that. I don't think there's anything worse than that. In this day and age, when technology drafts the word, when it's the thing that's making countries around the world to grow and get better. I mean, I don't know how we can envision making Liberia a better place without investing truly and honestly in our education. When you have leaders in a country, they should aspire to raise the standard of education and make it better for everyone. But I mean, there's so minimal contribution to education, and it's not funny. We need to step up. We need someone who will be more determined about educating our children. I mean, there's no critical thinking being taught in our schools. I mean, you imagine we having a show. Look, you don't have to agree with us, but you must learn how to just respect us, respect our views. That's the level of education we need for people to have just to think critically for themselves, to make the right decisions, to accept others as they are, to respect others' views. There are a lot of things we need to do, changing the minds and attitudes of our people, and those things can only come with education. If our people are educated, they will hold our governments more accountable. They will push for more. They will demand for more. So, excuse me, it's within the government's interest to keep our people as they are, to not educate them, because, I mean, it benefits and it suits them. They can mislead the people. They can ride up on their ignorance, and achieve and do whatever they want to do. So, I mean, they will truly invest in education. It will just be about lip service. They will only talking and talking and talking. I mean, sad. It's the same. You go all over the counties. There is no strong foundation. If we had a very strong and solid foundation from way nursery to elementary and then junior and senior high school to university, look, I can think Liberia will be way more competitive than what it is today, in the Committee of Nations. So, I mean, we cannot overemphasize the importance of, truly educating our people and showing that we invest in education.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, folks, I think we've, had a wonderful time here. We started a little early today, around 1:40, I believe, and been here for nearly 2 hours. But it's been an interesting show. I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussion on social media on what has happened today. There'll be different talking heads on different platforms weighing in on what's going on. Like I say, we need to keep this thing positive. We need to focus on the issues and let them be substantive as we try to deliver to our people. It's not about who can scream the loudest, who can cuss, and all that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, we want to develop Liberia. We want to move Liberia forward, and we want to make a difference. And the only way to make that difference is to have these kind of discussions, enlighten people, get more people involved in the process, educate more people. And then once we get a critical mass of people who are thinking, and they're thinking critically as well, they are able to bring their own thoughts to the table and all of that, then we'll be able to move our population forward. But for right now, we are at a very tough place, and it's a decision point for many Liberians. 2023 is a decision point, but you can't wait until 2023. The effort for those who care about Liberia has to start now. Start with one person, engage that person, see if you can change their mind. Work with them, continue to build relationship, keep in touch. You go to the next person. I have this motto about integrating Liberians, the Liberian Integration and Transformation Movement. And hopefully we'll start to get more active very soon, where we are engaging people. We are trying to form partnership with other people who are doing well, whether on the ground or here, that can impact the lives of other people and be able to do some things together. So, Baba, the floor is yours.
Well, I mean, I just want to thank our people who followed the show and the comments they made, regardless of what positions you took. You may have agreed with us, and we don't say thank you. But those who disagree with us, we hope you can find, a point where you realize the essence of some of the things you said. Today, the case against Mr. Cummings is just Mr. Cummings or the SG or the chairman. But for the greater good of our people, we need to work and fight against these things so that regardless of who is in power or who is in opposition,
they cannot go through the things Mr. Cummings has gone through. This is not good for our country. We need to work together to make Liberia better for every Liberian citizen. We need to fight. We need to hold our government accountable. We need to push for a better country. We need to push for development. We need to push our leaders to be more accountable, to observe the principles of good governance, to speak to us directly, to engage with us more, because we are lagging behind. I mean, we were funded and established, we got independence over 170 years ago. See where we are compared to countries that gained their independence in the 1960s and 1950s. They are way, way, way ahead of us. We're lagging behind. And it's not funny. We need to stand up, we need to fight harder, and we need to be more determined to change our country. It's been a good show. I guess we'll see you Friday. Thanks to the old man who sat in the driver's seat, and it's been excellent engaging with all of you. Regardless of what you said, we respect you and we believe Liberia will be a better country when we make better decisions. Thank you.
Amen. All right, folks. Peace. It was nice talking to you. Have a wonderful. Wow, today Friday, the weekend starting?
Yes.
I know D Calabash will kill tonight, so those who are going, enjoy themselves. We appreciate it. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Yes.